Hello and welcome to Joy News at 6. The news is live on Joy 99.7 and hits 103.9 FM in Accra. In Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Jubilee Radio, Sun City Radio Keta, Saboba FM Saboba and A1 Radio Bolgatanga. Get radio, TV and online content on the myjoyonline.com interactive app for Android and iOS devices. This morning, President Akufo-Addo says key government infrastructural projects which have stalled will resume shortly, despite admitting the IMF program does not mean an end to current economic difficulties.
Access to the IMF facility will not spell the immediate end of the difficulties we are in presently.
Government is meanwhile set to continue with implementation of key IMF targets, including removal of subsidies in the energy sector by end of June.
We know that the first review will be in November. We are working to make sure that all the conditionalities that we have to make or we have to meet before we are able to program attain.
In business,
government heavy borrowing on the treasury market triggers another marginal undersubscription of T-bills as interest rates surge. We've got details on the Joy Business Report.
Also, courts across the country remain closed today as the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana refused to call off their strike.
Depending on what the meeting brings forth, we will then take a decision on the fate of the strike. However, until we meet management, we are unable to call off the strike.
And much later in the bulletin, from Fela Kuti to Burna Boy, we have a special Joy entertainment feature focusing on how one man's music continues to inspire many.
Afrobeat is Fela Kuti.
My people say they fear too much. My people say they fear too much.
I am Amia Sinyamiche Thompson. Details shortly. President Akufo-Addo says key government infrastructural projects which have stalled will resume shortly, despite admitting the IMF program does not mean an end to current economic difficulties. Government is set to continue with implementation of key targets, including removal of subsidies in the energy sector and improving performance of state-owned enterprises. These conditions are to be met by end of June, and government is confident it will be able to meet them to enable the nation work towards unlocking the funds the international financial institutions has pledged. There's more in the following report.
The nation has already received at least $600 million from the fund. It is expected that a number of key conditions are to be fulfilled before a major review of the program in November to enable government unlock the second installment under the $3 billion facility. Dr. Leandro Medina is IMF resident representative.
The review will actually be hopefully in November. Then disbursement comes right after the board approval, which means that the program is on track to meet the objectives. So after the board approval, the disbursement is immediate.
So if it's approved in November, I stand to be the disbursement will come.
It's a matter of 1 or 2 days.
Some of the key conditions to be met by end of June include government finalizing strategy to strengthen the financial sector to address the impact of the domestic debt exchange program, publish the updated energy sector recovery plan with well-identified measures including removal of subsidies, reduction in transmission and distribution losses. Deputy Finance Minister John Kuma says government is determined to meet the targets of the fund.
We know that the first review will be in November. We are working to make sure that all the conditionalities that we have to make or we have to meet before we are able to program attain.
Former Finance Minister Seth Tekpa is however skeptical.
The minister is saying that they have been incrementing it, and they are now saying they're going to publish a strategy. For those very things, you can see the extent to which there's a lot of restoring.
Well, President Akufo-Addo says the support program does not mean an end to current difficulties.
Access to the IMF facility will not spell the immediate end of the difficulties we are in presently. But the fact that we've been able to negotiate such a deal sends a positive message to our trading partners, creditors, and investors. A positive message that will be underpinned by the discipline, hard work, and enterprise with which we execute the program. It should lead to the restoration of confidence and the reopening of avenues that have been closed to us this past year and a half. It should also lead to the resumption of many of the infrastructural projects.
He has meanwhile announced that all outstanding COVID-19 restrictions in Ghana have been lifted.
All the outstanding COVID-induced restrictions at our airports and all entry points have been lifted, and we're back to the pre-COVID situation as far as health entry requirements are concerned.
You heard President Akufo-Addo. Now get ready to do away with textbooks as government assures this year it will start replacing them with laptops in all senior high schools across the country. This was announced by Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia over the weekend.
The Minister for Education has also assured me that this year we will start the replacement of textbooks with laptops, which are textbooks embedded in senior high school. You will have the laptop, you will have all the textbooks embedded with past questions, lesson plans, and all of that to help the teachers and the students.
Courts across the country will remain closed today as the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana, JUSAG, refused to call off its strike. The action by JUSAG is a response to government's failure to address salary review and other pressing work concerns of its members. In a letter addressed to JUSAG last week, the Judicial Service said it will take the association's concerns to government. Despite the appeal, JUSAG remains steadfast in its decision and insists on directly engaging with management and the Judicial Service before considering any resolutions. Abdullah Yakubu is the General Secretary.
Yeah, we are very much worried about whose freedoms are at stake, especially suspects who have been arrested and wouldn't be able to stay beyond the 48 hours, or those who require bail and all other court users. Because of that, we try to give a very long rope to the government. If government was minded about the repercussions of our strike on the vulnerable Ghanaians who will require bail and others whose freedoms will be at stake, government would have engaged us at least within that 14 days.
We stay on issues relating to the judiciary. Now, General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God, Ghana, Dr. Stephen Wangam, is praying for Chief Justice nominee Justice Gertrude Tokonu to be protected from political manipulation. He believes her tenure of office will see significant improvement in justice if approved. Justice Tokonu joined leaders of the Assemblies of God Church to dedicate one of its chapels located at Tema.
No matter what happens in my life, I think the most precious part of my life is in knowing that I'm a child of that context that I am excited to accept to serve this country. And it is that concept, in that context, that I'm so excited to be at the altar.
You heard Chief Justice nominee Justice Gertrude Tokonu. We can now listen to Dr. Stephen Wangam.
God should make a forehead strong that no political power can manipulate it. You shall make unprecedented achievement and history. We preserve your family and everybody in the judiciary. Any power that shall rise against her, may they be subdued. We crush them in the name of Jesus. May their plots fail. May their evil thoughts and agenda be aborted. In the name of Jesus. The Lord bless you.
And you heard Dr. Stephen Wangam. And today on Showbiz, we put the focus on the man perceived by many as the father of Afrobeats, Fela Kuti. His music continues to inspire many.
Burna Boy's Ye is a big tune that sets many heads bopping. A song which has found its way on many playlists is from his 2018 Outside album. Fela Anikulapo Kuti is widely known as the father of Afrobeat. His music was powerful and his lyrics were unapologetic, so much that it drove social change. In this song, Fela expresses his rage at Nigerians for failing to fight for justice and allowing the security services to abuse their power.
Police, they come, they come. Confusion everywhere.
Fela inspired countless emerging artists to speak up and use their music to effect change. Burna Boy resampled the song for his critically acclaimed song Collateral Damage from his African Giant album.
My people say they fear too much. We fear the thing we not see. My people say they fear too much. We fear for the thing we no see.
It is obvious that Fela and his pursuit to effect change in Africa through his music still lives on and is constantly rubbing off on artists in and outside Africa.
Everybody run, run, run. Let it go. Everybody scatter, scatter. Let it go. Everybody run, run, run. Everybody scatter, scatter.
Burna Boy tapped into Fela's creative juices, and it is working for him.
Afrobeat is Fela Kuti, and he's my hero. It's like the same way a kid will have Superman as his hero growing up.
Them leave sorrow, tears, and blood.
And that beautiful Fela report was filed by Joy Entertainment's Kofi Hayford, bringing us to the end of the bulletin. In our top story, President Akufo-Addo says key government infrastructural projects which have stalled will resume shortly, despite admitting the IMF program does not mean an end to current economic difficulties. Business is up next on the Super Morning Show.